Mbote hotep, Amos Jambo to all of you, all my dear black people around the world. My name is Danny Chair and I am delighted to speak with you again in my podcast channel. Today we are going to talk about the book by CHEIK and DIOP, Civilisation or Barbarism, produced in 2000. En français, in French, Civilisation ou Barbarie, un livre réalisé en 2000. As usual, I would like to thank you for always being present to follow me. Before starting this session, it is important to explain the reason for opening this channel. Here we do more or less daily reading session on the instrumentalization methods that the local them, which means people who are non-black, so Caucasians, Arab, and slant eyes local them has used to destroy the black and assure that they will kill each other for an Africa without Africans. We read the books of the text of these crazy people that still endure today. Also, we read the books of our brothers and sisters who explain with an additional phenomenon is the fact that certain of them has experienced this. Our ancestors have for many lived during the slavery made by the Arab, which last 50 centuries, and the other Europeans for centuries, and that is continue with the colonization, which continues today. Several of them wrote texts on the torture, the experience of these people, of these white folks. And even today, many of us continue to live it. But by alienation and by fear and cowardice, we act like if this kind of things doesn't exist. Also, our brother and sister at this time and even today, they have given avenue of solution and still give more. It's not like if they have an end of solution, we have a new kind of solution we can be give because of many kind of situations. So it's not like if we have the solution, we have many of them that can help us to be out of this system. So it's really important to take everything they give to us to be out. We have the key, we have the keys, but the real problem is the fear, the cowardice, and maybe the alienation is a mix of all of this. Also, in the third part, I will give you my analysis and idea in relation to this text. Often they will go in particular in agreement with our authors, and at times a disagreement. I will give you a new avenue of reflection. What must be understood is that everything comes from ideas and come from the mind. Before someone kill another, it's because it's already thought about it. And all of these analysis will be hard to track of solutions that can be applied now that our ancestor had already gave us. But also to make sure that all black people on the earth develop an immune defense system against this. We become self-determined. Black parents have this role and should take it seriously. I think for my part that black parents don't take seriously the role. And I think sometimes they act like if it wasn't it warrants the problems or it's something we will pass. But the time pass, but look for them stays the same. So what is the problem? The problem is the black parents. That is the truth. This is the education of the black parents and also is the education of school system. But I already explained you this in my podcast before. Yes, it's true, it's not in English, but I think for the anglophones, they need to understand the French, and for the people who speak French or francophones, they need to understand the English. So I think we are not the choice to make all the possible to understand and to practice and to make everything a profit, to find the solution to be really out of the local names world. And also, we need to know the hatred of black people will never stop as long as these people are on this planet. Maybe if they don't want to see us, they can go in another planet. I think it's possible. It's not like if it's impossible. There are another planet in this world, so they can go to Mars, to Jupiter, everywhere they want, Venus. So the space is open for everyone, and for the people who want to go with Rogodeams too, and continue to live the Negrophobia with them. We need to understand that we are really at war, and this since our meeting with them 8,000 years ago. Today, we are going to talk about civilization or barbarism of CHEIK Diop, who was a great African researcher. He was born in December 29, 1923 in Tetu, died in February 7 in 1986 in Dakar. He's a scientist by training, historian, anthropologist, chemist, Senegalese politician, prof, an intellectual. I don't talk about the intellectuals people we saw in the summit in France, Afrique, in Montpellier, the last year, 2021. CHEIK Diop has spent his whole life wanting to put the Gamma continent, vulgarly called Africa today, in its real place, by retracing the anteriority of this land to give a boost to black people who from the invasions to the present day continues to be alienated by the locodem system. These are all the people who are non-black. I want to repeat it again because someone can really understand which means locodems. Not to confuse with albinism is the congenital absence of any pigmentation of coloration in an animal, plant, or person, resulting in the white hair, feathers, scales, and skin, and pink eyes in mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish, and invertebrates as well. Individuals with the condition are referred to as albinos, which is not locodem but a disease which can be fatal, because you know that albinism creates the cancer, the skin cancer, and some of albinism could die of the albinism. Nowadays, we have a lot of black people who are alienated by the Eurasian system, or even called exos. CHEIK Diop in this work, written in July 2000, we trace the past of the people of Kama, but also with the arrival of locodem, still called the men and women of the Ice Age. Today, they present themselves as civilized, modern men and women. We see the same thing with the case of Ukraine, Russia, but everywhere, every time. But who in reality, to achieve their goals, have to kill many people on earth. It is true that with all the evils, the destruction they are caused, they are afraid that the same will happen to them. But one cannot live in blood without expecting return. My podcast addresses reflection of thoughts and research to bring black people out of sleep. In water, there have been since the first breakthrough during the Fifth Dynasty by Akhenaton, even if many people like him because he was universalism and everything. But I don't really appreciate the way he easily manipulates. Maybe he was so naive, like all of black people we know. And his ideology of universalism, which has one of the biggest mistakes of these kings, like all black people. The ultimate goal of my channel is to exorcise black people from the inferiority complex, from these feelings of despair that as the religions have put us sleepy. Destroy the weakness, and which have led us into mistrust between blacks and isolation. We will study the coldness of locodem, and to do it with the books of Bobby A. Wright and Dr. Kweswasi. And how this species will never change. I say it again, and how the hatred of black, what you call racism, will never stop, because this phenomenon is genetically part of locodem. Each locodem is genetically necrophobe. You can change this because it's in their DNA. You need to understand why. Otherwise, without it, they will disappear from this planet. So I warn in advance that if the words of this channel seem to be violent for the most fragile, please leave but time, but will remind you for your cowardice. So for this session, we will do an introductory reading of the book whose preface was written by John Henry Clark. We will make two or three parts because it's really big for a word that John Henry Clark writing about CHEIK and Job, because he really admires his work, the work of CHEIK and Job, and it was something incredible. Yes, the work of CHEIK and Job, his works were incredible. And we need all of black people know who was CHEIK and Job. After that, we will discuss it a bit, and that will be the end of the session. Thank you. Don't forget to like and share this podcast. Support my work. Share with your brother or sister. Don't be ashamed and do it and be brave. This is really important. Thank you again for your support. So now let's go. At first, we will read the abstract and after the foreword. So let's go. Civilization or Barbarism, an Authentic Anthropology by CHEIK and Job. Translated from the French by Lenghi Memangemi, edited by Harold G. Salemson and Marjolaine de Jager or de Jager. I don't really know how to pronounce his name. In French, Civilisation ou Barbarie, une authentique anthropologie par CHEIK and Job, traduit en français par Lenghi Memangemi, édité par Harold J. Salemson et Marjolaine de Jager. Ou de Jager, je ne sais pas comment on prononce. The culmination over 30 years of multidisciplinary research, Civilization or Barbarism, is the late CHEIK and Job final contribution to the reconstruction of African and world history from an Afrocentric perspective. Here, he broadens the project that he began in the African origin of civilization, which has profoundly influenced thinking about Africa around the world. Job offered a critical challenge to orthodox scholarship interpretation of Egypt as a white civilization, which arose during the 19th century to reinforce European racism and imperialism. I will explain you a little bit, but I think all of you already know. White people, I prefer to say Caucasians because many people doubt about the fact that they are white. So look at them, but in particular, Caucasian people have a profoundly problem. It's because they are nothing. Let me explain. You know how look at them, Caucasian people be created in this world. It's because of the Ice Age around 100,000 years. So they came out of the cave where they stayed to survive against the winter, against the ice. And when they came out and they tried to a little bit travel, they see another world with another people who have different of them, who don't look like them, and they have created so many kind of things. They find themselves like petit, which means nothing. And at this moment, they understood that they are not the first in this planet. And now, born in them a jealousy. A jealousy because they cannot have the same level like us, like our ancestor, and even today. Because for people who don't know, many black people are in the origin of many inventions in this world, in this planet. They deliberately hide this part of the truth because they want to maintain their own narrative. They want to be seen. They want to be popular. You know, when someone have created nothing, when someone is nothing in the world, when someone is nowhere, when people is ignored, what they will do? So they will create a narrative. They will create a false history. They will create some things, it's different of them. But they will put their face. They will take some things created by the other, change a little bit the things, and make them like the person, make them like the first. So that is the history. We can resume in this way. Record them as the origin of nothing. Egyptology, for the people who already say my last podcast, they will understand in the book of Nation Agriculture, CHEIK and DIOP say that the base of the Egyptology is a negrophobia. It's because they hate black people, they create Egyptology. And if black people weren't in the origin of this science, they will never create the Egyptology. And also, it's something that we need to understand why someone create a science and what to be deliberate link at a science with a far away of where they live. Why? Why they take a culture of someone they hate? They hate so much that they cannot even explain how they hate us. They take the sciences, they take all the culture of our people and create their own science. And that's why I say Egyptology is a fake science. Why is a worldwide science? Because many people put money behind it because they want to maintain and control the narrative. We have many writers, or black people are precise, who write above us, who make research, not only CHEIK and DIOP, but many others. The only problem of black people, maybe in francophone country, is the fact that they don't really want to spend the time to read it. It's really important for black people to know their own history and to make everything is possible to explain it in their children. Because it's for the children we made this, it's not for ourselves. White supremacy is the war of the fake, of the mythomania. It's the only way they know. Because without it, nobody will look at them. Nobody wants to spend the time with them. Nobody wants to play with them. Nobody wants to be happy with them. Nobody wants to spend, the time or waste the time with them. So they create this false narrative. They create it because they want to maintain all the attraction toward them. We have many black people who want to be like Lucodem. We want to be same like him. We want to look like Lucodems. We want to marry a Lucodem. We want to marry them, have a children, be in social media with them, already be in their party. We don't really know why they act like a stupid, alienate people. Because they be control since the slavery. And also, they create the Egyptology to explain and maintain the supremacy in black people. And to explain why they need to stay the slaves. Even if the real slave are the European of East. But they deliberately, with Arabs, create this narrative to impose them their culture. It's a culture of the destruction. And to make all the possible to make us hate so much our spirituality. That's why we have many black people who Christian, who Catholic, who Christian or Muslim or Jew or Buddhist. I don't know. And Satanist. We have so many kind of black people who lost somewhere, nowhere. And they think they take a good choice because look what them say is a great choice, in the great way you need to continue to come with us. It's terrible. But that is the reason why. It is not the only reason, but that is a particular reason they created. Because they have nothing. Nobody wants to spend the time with them. Nobody wants to look at them. Nobody wants to make the party with them. And at the ancient times, look at them. They don't know how to watch themselves. It's a more, but not was it they say more, but it was black people who learned then how to watch, how to read, how to write, like a child. But today, it's how they return everything we learn to them in ourselves, but in the bad way. They want to destroy us in many ways. Because the final objective or goals will never change is the destruction of all black people. because they really hate us in the way you cannot understand, you cannot explain. But these things is in their DNA. If you understand the DNA, you will understand why these people hate us for the truth. Even if they try to have mixed marriage, black and white, is a way to destroy us. And that's why they create all this fake science. Anthropology is a fake science. It was only created to talk about the people who don't look like them. Only people who don't look like them. That's why they create anthropology. That's why they create ethnology. It's the same things. That's why they create all the social sciences. It's because they want to know who they hate and how to control them, how to destroy them, how to enter in the society, know how they organize, and through this organization find the problems, and with these problems how to destroy this society. That is always like this they work. Even if they have the media today to destroy the minds, they always need to go on the field to see by their own side how they organize, how they destroy them, how to create tribalism between us. They need to integrate our community to manipulate the weak people in our society. So that's why I maintain the fact that we have no president in Africa. We have only puppets, and they know how to manipulate them. They know what kind of pressure they can make to them to let them obey always to Lokodia. So you understand that Lokodian people use the sciences of our population to maintain and reinforce the racism, negrophobia, I prefer saying negrophobia, and to maintain us in the low level, and yes, to apply the imperialism. Amazing evidence from the linguistic to the archaeological, from the historical to the philosophical. He demonstrates that Egypt was a black civilization and that blacks have the rightful heirs of Egypt's proud legacy. That is really important, that black people need to know that our ancestor create all the sciences in this world, and they make all the possibility, all the power to understand the nature rule. They made all the possible to understand why Imana won't say to us. They don't dare sit, take an alcohol, drink, and go to the party, move the bottom in the ass, play the fool people around the TV, in the entertainment, in the BET, and the stupid awards of local dams. They work, they work so much. And black peoples at this time commit, understand the place of the nature and the other species in this nature. They are not there and stay there and think that animals is just there to obey us. Not. Animals are also a creature or a manifestation of the divine source. It's sad that today we think animals is just there to nourish them or nourish us, but that is false. They are also a divine source. They are also a soul. They have a soul in them. They speak in their own language. They speak the way they can't. So black people need to have this contact. Try to find a way to have a link. And we have the books. We learn how to have this link. And we have a group of persons in Kama, even in Western, even in the Caribbean, we have a group of person who can help us to try to find this connection we lost, and to speak with the nature, and speak with them and recreate this energy we lost. So that is really important for us to always try to know who they are. We have the person who explain or will learn how to speak in Made Nature, So in the real language of Kemet, the language of the nature, the divine language, and you can learn everything. If you search, you will find. If you don't search, you will stay in the same zone, comfort zone. So it means the lazy zone. I will repeat again, amassing evidence from the linguistic to the archaeological, from the historical to the philosophical. He demonstrated that Egypt was a black civilization and that blacks have the rightful heirs of Egypt's proud legacy. So we can take our land when we want. We need just to have the force and the courage to say we want to take our land, our continent is our continent. Africa, Kemet is our continent. Kamakatuba. Don't be ashamed to be African. Don't be ashamed to be Kemet. Don't be ashamed to be black people. You need to accept who you are. It's not like if you are a stranger or foreigner on your own land. Africa is a land of black people. It's a pole of all the energy of the sun, Ra. And you need to take this energy. It's for you. It's for you and not for someone else. If someone else will make you down, remember, you are the first human. You are the first creator of Imana create. The engineering that produced the pyramids, development of medicine, science, and mathematics, and philosophically speculation on the origin of the universe. Moreover, it shows truth, superbly details documentation that Greek civilization long revered as the birthplace Western thought holds a substantial depth to Egyptian ideas and accomplishment. The Greek civilization is just a little bit subtract, but it's not all the history of Kemet society, which only came of a little bit part of Kemet, a little bit, and not all. That's why everything's in the architecture of the Greek population, Greek, is always the same. I will explain you later the architecture if you want to know, but because I am a student in architecture and I can explain you a little bit the most I can how is structured architecture in the Greek and the society, but you know that the society has badly imitated African organization because you see the result today. Massive in scope and containing more than 75 illustrations, civilization or barbarism begins with the scientific evidence for the monogenetic and African origin of the human race, ends with the premise of an emerging international ethics that will create, in inverted comma, a new perception of humanity without ethnic coordinates. It will be recognized by scholars and general readers alike an extraordinary intellectual achievement. That is the end of the English version of the abstract. I want to say something. I'm not, for the people who know my podcast, I'm not for the universalism. I'm not for the humanity, because humanity is a concept that local people create. Our ancestors doesn't talk about they never talk about humanity. No, they were Kemet, Bantu, or creator. I don't think humanity. I will explain you in a podcast. Sadly, it will be in French. I will try to make a podcast in English. I will explain you why, and you see the limit of the humanity with the case in Ukraine borders to Poland. You see the limit of the humanity. So that's why I don't really want to talk about humanity, because it's not an history of humanity. And also, human beings are not the only people and creation in this planet and even in the universe. So I don't want to only maintain the creation of Imana in humanity. Because they are not the only person here to have a soul, to have a feelings, they are not the only person here. So Humanity for me is just a limited concept of the power of the wholesome energy of the creator. So I don't really agree with this kind of limited concept like humanity. So now I will try to talk in French to explain you the rhythm, but you need to understand that the rhythm in French is a little bit different in English, and you need to know that English is more of straight language. So they go to the straight, go to the point, and French turn around, and yes, it's a little bit implicit. They hide so many things. They don't want to say the things truthfully, so they hide the concept, they hide the signification. You need to much more use your brains to understand. So let's go. Résumé. Toutes les recherches scientifiques que CHEIK a menées depuis quelques décennies sur les fondements historiques de la civilisation africaine culminent en cet ouvrage capital, Affirmation de l'identité nègre, dont le titre marque avec force l'enjeu civilisation ou barbarie. Je ne sais pas pourquoi il n'a pas dit civilisation ou barbarisme, parce que barbarisme, bon, on peut lier la chose, ce sont les alliés des langues locodermiques. Donc, j'ouvre les guillemets. Pour nous, écrit CHEIK ANTA DIOP, le retour à l'Égypte dans tous les domaines est la condition nécessaire pour réconcilier la civilisation africaine avec l'histoire, pour pouvoir bâtir un corps des sciences humaines modernes, pour rénover la culture africaine, loin d'être une délectation sur le passé, un regard vers l'Égypte antique est la meilleure façon de concevoir et bâtir notre futur culturel. Donc, que veut dire CHEIK ANTA DIOP ici? Il n'est pas question de dormir, il n'est pas question de dire « Ah, dans le passé, nos ancêtres ont fait ci, nos ancêtres ont fait ça, vraiment, c'était incroyable, oui, c'est bon, donc en fait, c'est pour nous, oui, c'est super. » Non, ce n'était pas ça l'objectif, ce n'était pas ça. L'objectif n'est pas de rester dans le passé, de dormir là et se dire « Bon, en fait, je suis descendant de ça et voilà. » Non, l'objectif, c'est d'apprendre de ce passé, de connaître ce passé, de comprendre quels ont été les événements et voir effectivement comment notre culture a été organisée par rapport aux défis qu'on a, donc à son époque, qui est toujours la même époque, parce que le passé n'est jamais passé, il est présent pour certaines raisons. Mais il est vrai, le passé où l'Afrique était à son plus grand niveau est passé. Parce que c'est pas ce qu'on voit aujourd'hui. Mais le passé où le méanoderme est esclavagisé, colonisé, est toujours présent parce qu'il est toujours aujourd'hui. Donc, voilà. Il nous dit, pour sortir de nos problèmes, c'est une manière de résumer la chose, il faut que nous nous réapproprions de tous nos éléments culturels. Et nous en avons. L'Afrique a un artefact culturel énorme. Énorme et d'une ampleur gigantesque. D'une ampleur époustouflante que même moi, je ne saurais vous décrire avec les meilleurs mots, avec des mots, voilà. Sinon, j'inventerais un mot pour expliquer la chose. Donc, les éléments architecturaux, les éléments artistiques, les éléments linguistiques, les éléments culturels africains, kamites, sont incroyablement à l'infini. Difficile de l'expliquer, difficile de donner même un qualificatif réel qui saurait l'expliquer. Et donc, ces éléments-là seront la source qui vont nous aider à nous rehausser. Effectivement, la chose, c'est qu'il faut que cela s'emploie, cela s'éduque, cela s'explique dans les écoles. Malheureusement, vous avez compris qu'avec notre système éducatif, qui est relayé par un système occidental et dont l'Occident lui-même gère notre système éducatif, nous bloque momentanément et de façon délibérée pour qu'on apprenne leurs sales valeurs pédophiles, homosexuels et beaucoup de trucs tordus. Voilà. J'en parlerai prochainement dans la suite de la lecture du protocole de Toronto. Donc, voilà. Donc, effectivement, l'Afrique doit se réconcilier avec son histoire. Parce qu'actuellement, nous ne sommes pas réconciliés avec notre histoire. Actuellement, nous la fuyons, nous pensons que c'est toujours des gris-gris. Bon, c'est pas tout le monde, mais la majorité fait malheureusement l'unanimité. Bon, je m'en fous si je me suis un peu trompée dans le vocabulaire, mais dont la majorité nous fait défaut. Parce que la majorité dort. La majorité veut devenir pop star, truc bizarre. La majorité veut être dans les médias, faire les trucs. Et la majorité veut vivre dans la vie du locoderme. La majorité veut finir leur vie avec un locoderme, avoir un enfant métis, voilà, qui se mariera avec un locoderme, etc. Donc, la majorité vit dans l'illusion, malheureusement. Et donc, il explique que ça sera le moyen pour nous de rebâtir notre vie et notre science. Parce que les Africains, on ne va pas se mentir, on n'a pas de laboratoire, proprement dit, on n'en a pas. On n'a que nos petits coins là entre nous, soit c'est dans notre maison, soit c'est quelque part, mais même le quelque part, on peut nous chasser parce que le gouvernement peut dire que c'est pas vraiment légal et bon, voilà. Soit, voilà. Sinon, en réalité, on n'a rien, on n'a aucune infrastructure. Effectivement, moi, je peux, si effectivement quelqu'un a l'argent et il achète un terrain, s'il veut que je dessine un laboratoire, je le ferai parce que je suis dans la capacité de le faire. Donc, la chose est là. La chose est claire que, effectivement, on n'a pas d'infrastructure pour le faire. Effectivement, les locodermes, eux, ils achètent les terres chez nous et donc, s'ils veulent placer un laboratoire avec leur effectif locoderme, ils vont le mettre. Effectivement, le mélanoderme, comme il est idiot dans sa tête, il va accepter parce qu'il se dit, c'est le locoderme. Effectivement, ce sont des hommes de science. Ils sont nés pour ça, ce sont des scientifiques et c'est bien. Voilà. Donc, pour dire vrai, nous avons un sérieux problème. Nous nous sous-estimons, nous ne nous intéressons pas à nos propres problèmes, à nos propres initiatives, alors ce sont les autres qui le font. Mais CHEIK dit, il faut qu'il se rééduque de lui-même, il faut que les parents doivent faire cet effort de rééducation, effectivement, pour que demain, on ait des enfants qui se battent pour leur propre terre. Et que même à travers ça, parce que si le parent éduque l'enfant dans cette voie-là, ça veut dire que le parent lui-même, à l'heure actuelle, il peut trouver une solution à l'heure actuelle pour sauver son continent. Et donc, imaginez si une multiplicité de parents mélanodermes, de parents noirs, Kamitou, décident de prendre cette initiative à échelle continentale, c'est déjà la fin du système locodermique. Mais le problème, c'est qu'avec le système de la mendicité, de la faim, ça sera compliqué. Donc, CHEIK dit, ce n'est pas une histoire de délectation du passé. Et moi, je vais vous dire une situation. Le passé n'est pas encore passé parce que vous avez vu le contexte avec la crise ukraino-russienne. Vous avez vu comment ils vous méprisent de façon génétiquement naturelle. Je précise bien génétiquement naturelle. J'appuie déjà la génétique, c'est naturel. Mais génétiquement naturel pour dire que c'est naturel, comprenez, que le codème se comporte comme ça. Il le fait parce que sinon, il serait exterminé. Il se protège et s'il faut détruire tout ce qui ne lui ressemble pas, il le fera, c'est naturel. Donc n'essayez pas de trouver un contexte pour lui faire expliquer pourquoi il ne doit pas le faire. Et ce n'est pas lui qui décide tout seul. Si, de façon congénitale, son gène interagit de façon à vous détruire, il va le faire. Ce gène-là va le faire. Vous comprenez ce que je veux dire là? Parce que beaucoup de personnes ne comprennent pas l'ampleur génétique. Comme des gens s'étonnent que leur ami locoderme se change et devient nécrophobe. Il n'en avait pas l'air, mais pourquoi il est devenu? Parce que son système naturel, génétique, lui a fait comprendre que là où il va, c'est dangereux. Il risque de plus se reconnaître culturellement à ce qu'il est lui-même. Donc, effectivement, il va avoir une réponse qui n'est pas une réponse inconsciente, donc qui n'est pas une réponse qu'il ne connaît pas ou qui vient d'un esprit satanique. Non, c'est une réponse qui vient de son être originel qui ne veut pas disparaître. Donc, c'est un système automatique de défense génétiquement naturel. Ce que les gens ne veulent pas comprendre, ce que les gens ne comprennent pas, ce que le noir, aliéné, bête, stupide, excusez les mots, mais c'est vrai, ne veulent pas comprendre. Et c'est pour ça qu'ils veulent continuer à croire qu'il y a une lueur d'espoir. Il n'y a pas de lueur d'espoir, mes frères. Il n'y a pas de lueur d'espoir. Ce qu'il y a, c'est le fait de se battre. Il faut qu'on se batte, c'est tout. Donc, nous allons continuer. Donc, il est important de voir ce qui s'est passé dans le passé. Donc, il est important de voir ce qui s'est passé dans le passé pour comprendre le présent et se prémunir dans l'avenir. Donc, pour interagir et trouver des solutions pour l'avenir. L'avenir, ça peut être demain. L'avenir, c'est pas que nos enfants, ça peut être même dans 5 mois. Donc, il faut trouver des solutions à travers le passé pour le présent, dans le court terme et le futur, le moyen terme et le plus que futur, dans l'avenir à long terme. Il faut trouver des moyens. Sinon, vous serez là encore à pleurer. Oh, la négrophobie, pourquoi ils ne nous aiment pas? Pourquoi? Donc, il faut trouver des moyens. Il faut réfléchir. Il faut réfléchir et réfléchir rapidement, mes frères. Le Mali a répondu rapidement. Ils ont répondu tic au tac.
Parce que la cerberie, ça, c'est une maladie. Le poison du leucodème, c'est une maladie. C'est une maladie mortelle, mortifère. Il faut agir vite pour cibler et détruire le cerbère. C'est très important. On va continuer. Donc, c'est très important d'étudier la culture parce qu'elle permet de renforcer effectivement notre vision culturelle, de renforcer notre histoire et de nous préserver du mal. Parce que l'homosexualité a pour but l'autodestruction. Je vous ai déjà expliqué un peu comment l'homosexualité s'est faite. Je reviendrai avec un peu plus de détails, un peu plus... peut-être ça sera une séance un peu plus longue qui expliquera un peu ce que c'est que l'homosexualité, pourquoi malheureusement c'est quelque chose à bannir, même si beaucoup de personnes ne veulent pas qu'on le dise. L'Égypte jouera dans la culture africaine repenser et rénover le même rôle que les antiquités gréco-latines dans la culture occidentale. Effectivement, vous avez compris, comme j'avais dit en anglais, qu'en fait, les Grecs ont pris une bribe de l'ampleur culturelle africaine. Ils ne l'ont pas tout pris parce que c'est trop vaste, c'est une longue histoire, c'est un passé il y a des centaines, peut-être des millions d'années, et donc on ne peut pas piocher tout ça et construire ça ailleurs. Effectivement, donc on ne prendra qu'un bout, et donc ce bout, c'est cette partie de Kemet là que vous connaissez et qui s'est répandue partout sur les terres leucodermiques, caucasiennes, arabes, etc., mais qui ne sont qu'une bribe, une infinité de parties. Voilà. Entre guillemets, il dit ceci: cette œuvre exemplaire s'articule autour de grands thèmes qui s'inscrivent dans le débat culturel contemporain. La démonstration de l'origine africaine de l'humanité, à la fois au stade de l'Homo erectus à celui de l'Homo sapiens. Bon, ça n'a pas été dit en anglais, ça vous l'avez compris. Fondé sur les données de la chronologie absolue, de l'anthropologie physique, de l'archéologie préhistorique, de la description des lois des lois qui gouvernent l'évolution des sociétés dans leurs différentes phases, clans, tribus, nations, l'identification des différents types d'États et celle du moteur de l'histoire dans les États à, entre guillemets, mode de production asiatique. Vous allez comprendre. L'étude des différentes révolutions de l'histoire, surtout de celles qui ont apparemment échoué et que la théorie classique n'a jamais prise en compte. Et une définition de l'identité culturelle, une approche des relations interculturelles, l'évaluation de l'apport scientifique du monde noir égyptien à la Grèce en particulier. Les prémices d'une nouvelle philosophie largement fondée sur les sciences de l'expérience et l'expérience scientifique qui pourrait peut-être un jour réconcilier l'homme avec lui-même. Donc, CHEIK Diop était un peu une sorte d'humaniste. Et moi, je ne suis pas humaniste, vous avez compris. Ceux qui connaissent ma podcast channel en français, ils ont compris que je ne suis pas pour l'universalisme ni pour l'humanisme. On a vu la limite de l'humanité à l'Ukraine, mais ça, c'est quelque chose que je vous avais déjà expliqué depuis. Je vous ai expliqué que le codème est comme ça naturellement et que des cas vont se montrer, vous allez voir comment est-ce qu'ils sont en réalité. Et ne soyez pas étonnés, mes frères, parce que vous êtes toujours étonnés. Je ne sais pas si vous n'allez pas très très bien, mais je crois que oui, c'est vrai, vous n'allez pas très très bien. Donc, voilà pour le résumé. Now we will read the dedication of CHEIK Diop for his best friends and only friends until the death, Alioune Diop. I dedicate this book to the memory of Alioune Diop, who died on the battlefield of African culture. Alioune, you knew what you came to do on this earth, a life entirely dedicated to others. Nothing for yourself, everything for others. A world filled with goodness and generosity, a soul steeped in the nobility, a spirit always serene, simplicity personified. Did the demiurge want to provide us with an example, an ideal of perfection, by calling you into existence? Alas, the terrestrial community to which you knew how to convey better than anyone else. The message of human truthfulness that sprang from the inmost depth of your beings was deprived of you too soon, but the remembrance of you will never be erased from the memory of the African people, to whom you dedicate your life. This is why I'm dedicating this book to your memory in witness to a brotherly friendship that is stronger than time.
by CHEIK ANTA Diop, Dakar, Senegal. That is a beautiful way to express a dedication and admiration for a best friend who would spend all his time for the education of Africa. So for the people who don't know who was Alioune Diop, born January 10, 1910 in Saint Louis, Senegal, and died May 2, 1908 in Paris, is a Senegalese intellectual who played a leading role in the emancipation of African cultures, notably founding the journal Présence Africaine. Africa. For people who have followed my podcast on the problems of African art in book Nation, Nègre et Culture, you have noticed that the majority of the foolish Africanist books have all been edited in this publishing house. This amount of to alerting Africans to be vigilant about the writers they publish and to whom they give visibility. The local virus explained a little bit by Ama Mazama that black people have kept them from looking for quality and always picking up a lot of trash and become, for many, the top of the world. Africanists, for those who do not know, it's local terms, or yes, you understand, local terms is people who are non-black. Precisely, Caucasians would tell a falsified story, like a fake news of Africa. And because of the little experience on the continent, but it's not like if they stay and understand. Because of the little experience, the things like, like white men, because they marry a black woman, or like a white woman because they marry a black man, they think they know all black men, all black women in the world. It's the same things like Africanist. So they think they are specialists of our continent and decide by the pseudo experience of telling a fantasy Africa in order to be successful, first because exotism in Western and Arab society sells well. For the people who don't know what exotism wants to say, it means savage. So when someone says to you, you are exotic, so it means you are savage people. You need to understand the language of local terms, all the languages, and create the myth of the black savages who live only in the jungle without culture, cannibalist, tribalist, and all his Western mythomania. Behind them, get information that will allow them to destabilize families and community on the continent. Darwin's cousin had gone on expedition to Africa, and following that he created eugenics. Why? What to say about the real intentions towards Africans. From where we black people, we must learn to support the quality work of our brothers and sisters to avoid that our editor take money from the writings of local damn negrophobes. Alioune Diop's wife, she's still alive today. He's a black woman. His name is Yandé Christian Diop today. He's a director of the Présence Africaine edition and was born in 1925 in Douala, Cameroon, to a Senegalese father who has an agent at the French railway operator, government in the sad period, and a Cameroonian mother, wife of the late Alioune Diop, founder magazine Présence Africaine in 1947. I don't want to confuse it, but when we see that Alioune Diop in his fight did it alongside a black woman, we could ask the question, what was the context that forced CHEIK ANTA Diop to marry a Caucasian? No context. Indeed, it was a choice of alienation, like many black men and women. But if he knew it, I think he would have noted in the types of lunatic he cited in the preface of his book Negro Nation and Culture, Nation, Nègre et Culture. Voilà. Donc, je vais un peu le dire en français. Donc, pour ceux qui pensent effectivement que CHEIK ANTA Diop était normal, je pense que s'il a épousé sa femme, qui est locodéenne, était-ce par aliénation? Oui.
Pourquoi? Parce que Aliou Diop, dans son combat, il aurait aussi pu choisir une femme locodère, mais il a préféré épouser une femme camerounaise-sénégalaise, bref, une femme africaine, quoi. Et donc, c'est pour dire que je ne peux pas justifier le fait que Cheikh Anta Diop ait choisi une femme locodère parce que, en fait, ça n'a aucun sens. Et sinon, on pourrait trouver des justifications pour tous ceux qui sont partis avec la locodermie. Donc, ça veut dire que Cheikh Anta Diop était aliéné et c'est pour ça qu'il a choisi une femme locoderme. Excusez-moi de dire les choses comme ça, mais il y a beaucoup de choses qui prouvent qu'il avait beaucoup d'aliénation. Et je le dis par rapport aux lectures que j'ai faites. Il trouvait souvent des circonstances atténuantes au locoderme.
So now we will read the content. This book is divided by 4 parts. Part 1, we have the acknowledge the list of figures forward by John Henry Clark. We will read a little part today. An introduction. And at the part 1, we have the paleontological approach with 4 chapters. Part 2, laws governing the evolutions of society, motto of history in society of AMP and the Greek city-state with 9 chapters. Part 3, cultural identity, that I think is really important, with 2 chapters. And part 4, Africa contribution to the humanity in sciences and in philosophy. Part 3 chapters. Okay. So now we will read the foreword, but I will only read the 2 beginnings page, so 2 page only today because I already take a long of time to explain you the abstract. I am sorry about that. And the next session we will read the rest of it and explain you certain concepts, and I will make a little bit biography about Chi Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Marcus Garvey, because it's important to explain you who were this person, because it's part of our culture, it's part of our history. So because I want to maintain our hourly of 1 hour, so thank you, and don't forget, I will recommend you again to like and share my podcast channel. So let's go forward. Cheikh Anta Diop is considered to be one of the greatest scholars to emerge in the African world in the 20th century. He was born in Diourbel, Senegal, a town on the west coast of Africa, in 1923. His birthplace has a long tradition of producing Muslim scholar and oral historian. This is where his inspiration and interest in history, the humanities, and the social sciences from an African point of view began. The years of his life in 1923 until 86 and the creation of his work were years of transition and change for the whole of the African world in the United States. The Pan-African Congresses under the leadership of W.E.B. Du Bois. I will also explain you who was W.E.B. Du Bois in French and in English the next time, because I will take a long time to explain you who he was, and also T. Washington. So in the next time. We're well underway. African Americans were still debating Booker T. Washington's theory of education favorably while dismissing his theory of participation. The first of the trials of Marcus Garvey in relationship to the Black Star Line had already started, and the largest Africa-oriented movement ever to be brought was well underway in spite the trials and the tribulation of Garvey. In the Caribbean, the intellectuals on the larger islands, especially Jamaica, Trinidad, and Barbados, independent today, were fighting for a constitutional government from the French-speaking island. Guadeloupe and Martinique, and from what was then called French Guiana, representatives were being sent to the French Parliament who spoke clearly and more precise French than most Frenchmen. That is true. If you go in the overseas, you will see that this place, they act like if they were French more than French people, and it's terrible. But it's not all of them today. Many changes are made. If you go,
you will see the transformation. Even if we have certain people we stay colonized in their mind, that is something we cannot easily take off. So yeah, it's not easy for everyone. In Africa, most of the warriors, nationalists of the 19th century had either been driven into exile, imprisoned, and removed from power. Missionary trained Africans were capturing the attention of the colonial administration, while the physical fight against colonialism had abated. The intellectual fight continued from this period until the eve of the African independence explosion in the late 1950s. African political lecture appear mainly in South Africa, in West Africa, in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Sierra Leone. Even if today Ghana, with the President Nana Akufo, everything is poor, everything is bad, with the liberalism system. He take off the West population civilization. In 1945, Caribbean islanders and African in England convened the Fifth Pan-African Congress in Manchester. In attendance at this Congress were Kwame Nkrumah. Sadly, in his tomb or with the ancestor asked what happened in Ghana, we know he's sad. Who was one of the conveners, Jomo Kenyatta, Nnamdi Azikiwe of Nigeria, Peter Brahams of South Africa, Amy Ashwood Garvey, the first wife of Marcus Garvey. Not one of these participants forgotten the re-stimulation in Africa tough brought on by the Italian-Ethiopian War in 1935 until 36, and the death of Marcus Garvey in 1940. They were meeting in part to pay tribute to Marcus Garvey, and as a reminder, the Africans has to reclaim Africa for Africans. Even if today, Caucasian people, Western civilization, don't want to recognize it and want to maintain the control in Africa. CHEIK and DIOP lived through the African independence explosion that began with the independence of Ghana in March 1958. The aftermath of this event was bright and hopeful, but unfortunately short-lived. DIOP lived to see Africa turn against itself, motivated in part by his former colonial master, come Seda Senghor, who were still behind the scene controlling the destiny of the continent, like today, but with a little change. It's slow, but the change is made. He lived to plan a solution, came to attention of a few serious scholars. On the eve of his unfortunate passing, he was just beginning to reach the audience that will give him the recognition he deserved. All African people everywhere are close to better understand of their history and destiny because of the personality and work of CHEIK and DIOP. I will explain you also in the next time the history of CHEIK and DIOP using the discipline and linguistic, cultural, and physical anthropology, history, chemistry, and physics that his research requires. He forged new theoretical pathways and reveal new evidence in the quest uncover the ancient origin and unified principle of classical African civilization. He was not only an innovative theoretician, but he was also a pragmatist. That is something incredible with the work of CHEIK and DIOP. He stayed pragmatic with everything. He never tried to make subjective work like Locodem done or do today. He stays the same in the same line to explain to black people the real history. He was a great researcher. He published works that offered pragmatic suggestions for the political and economic unification of Africa. For example, in his book, Black Africa, the economic and cultural basis for federate states. That is a book that all black people need to read. You need to read this book. is important because it will explain you why and how we can solve our problems in our continent. And if you read this book, you will understand why local dam system don't want black people be independent. I don't talk about the false independence that you think you are independent and you make your false party. No, I talk about who we were before the meeting with them. So you need to, all of you, have this book, Black Africa, the economic and cultural basis of federate state. He presents a blueprint for saving the mineral wealth of Africans for regeneration still unborn. This book is neither widely read nor understood, and this is unfortunate because it's one of his more useful books. In some way, he went beyond Pan-Africanism. He was a scholar activist dedicated to science. In the interest of his people, he saw Africa and his people as the hope of the humanity. I think I will prefer to end in this line because I think it's a little bit powerful. So the next time I will explain you who were W.E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, T. Washington. Firstly, I will explain you a little bit about CHEIK and TEJOB and how the interest of the science and the history of Africa. I will explain you why it's important to read Black Africa, the economic and cultural basis of federate state. I will explain you why it's important, and also made all the possible to explain you a little bit who is Nana Akufo-Addo. I hope we will have the time to read the rest of this lecture. If we don't have the time, maybe we will read the rest in another time, maybe another session, another podcast. I hope this first moment of lecture was important and interesting for you. For me, it's interesting because I like made the reading session, so I really appreciate. And also for the people who don't have the time, we cannot have the possibility to buy the book, download this podcast and share at friends. So I hope it was really interesting for you. Don't hesitate to like and share my podcast. It's really important for me to improve my podcast. I'm not a YouTuber, that is true, but it's really important for you to like, to share, to comment in good way my podcast, and also help me. It's not easy for me to speak in English, it's not my language. Even the French is not my language, but I try all the possible to touch all the place. And if you understand, and it's something, yes, beautiful for me to make this kind of initiative. So thank you to all of you. We will see us on the next session. So bye, bibala.